friends and a bottle of wine. Bobby got leukemia, 14 years old. He looked like 65 when he died. He was a friend of mine.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Film Buds podcast. This is episode number 181, right?
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah. And my name is Henry.
And I'm Paul.
This week we have a triple header for you, kind of a James Gunn special, if you will. We have a review of The Suicide Squad, the new one, which is now out in theaters and on HBO Max. And then we're going to be doing retro reviews of his two Guardians of the Galaxy films, volumes 1 and 2. So we'll be doing that. And then depending on how long that goes, we might get to other stuff, but we'll just see how all that goes. So yeah, thanks again for joining us. Paul, how are you?
I'm doing well. It was a pretty good weekend. I actually ended up seeing The Suicide Squad twice over the weekend. I saw it once at home as my second watch. But the first time that I saw it, I went out and I saw it at a drive-in in Kings Mountain.
How was that?
It was a good time. It was Hounds Drive-In, I think it was called. It was like an hour or so away from where I am. And it was a really good time. I went with my wife and my parents, and it was really fun. It was nice to get out and see a movie, and it was a pretty good presentation. It was a little dim at the start just because the sun still hadn't quite gone all the way down yet. But it was really good. I had a good time.
That's awesome.
How are you? How was your concert?
Yeah. So if you follow us on Instagram at FilmBuds, you'll see I posted a couple videos there. I went to the a Hella Mega tour concert this past Sunday in DC, which was Green Day, Weezer, was supposed to be Fall Out Boy, but one of them got COVID, so they didn't play. And then the Interrupters. And so it's this big kind of punk rock concert. And yeah, I drove up there Sunday morning, had the concert on Sunday evening, and then came back on Monday. And yeah, it was awesome. I mean, Green Day has been my favorite, and I had never seen Weezer before. I loved them. And then the Interrupters as well. So yeah, it was a shame about Fall Out Boy, but I didn't shed tears. And so yeah, that was really nice. You know, I'd only seen Billy Joe Armstrong once before, so it was kind of cool to see him in the flesh before I ship out. And so that was really nice. And for the most part, everything went pretty smoothly. So that was comforting. And yeah, so yeah, it was a really nice time. Yeah, nice time.
Good. I'm glad you had a nice time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had seen about the Fall Out Boy COVID thing, and so I was curious if they ended up performing. I wasn't sure if yours was one of the affected shows or not.
Yeah, I got an email about 2 hours before when I had just gotten up to DC. I was like, great. So, you know, but for another time, you know. I mean, there's nothing, I guess, in particular about that I guess is worth mentioning aside from just going.
Did they have a fill-in act, or did they just skip it? No,
they just kind of, it ended a little bit shorter than or earlier than I think, but I think they kind of stretched it out a little bit. I think everyone got a little bit more playing time because of it. Okay. So that was fine. Yeah. Yeah, Rivers Cuomo of Weezer was just like, he showed up in this kind of like 1980s high school kind of nerd outfit. And it was great. He was just, I mean, and he crushed it. It was awesome to see him live and everybody really. So that was awesome. Other than that, and I guess just a quick reminder, if you didn't catch the last show. So did join the Air Force recently, and I'm shipping out on the 17th of August this month. Again, I'm not leaving the show for good or you know, the show isn't ending, anything like that. I'm just going to be taking a little bit of a hiatus until maybe mid-October, something like that, maybe earlier, but I don't know. And so Paul here has graciously offered to take up the reins. Well, the show will, you know, continue going, and I'll come back as soon as I can. But just know that for starting next week is when that is going to go into effect. So yeah, well, anything else for you, Paul, you want to mention?
No, not really. I imagine that Nick Delgadillo will probably be on. I might try and also arrange a few other people of interest. I'm contemplating maybe going and getting one of my old, or Henry and I's old college professors to come on potentially.
Oh, which one?
I'm going to try and see if I can convince Frank Donaldson to do it.
Oh, wow. That would be an experience.
Yeah. So I think that could be a lot of fun, if for no one else but me.
He needs to be a part of Film Buds history.
Yeah. So I think that it could be a lot of fun. I think it'll be a good time. I might also potentially get someone who works in the entertainment industry in some capacity to come on as a connection through my sister. So I need to talk to her about arranging that as well. So it'll be an interesting time. I'm certainly going to miss you, and these weekly talks, honestly. But yeah, that's pretty much all that I have about it. So
yeah, and you'll have
tuned.
And you'll have to hit up Jacob Bowers. I mean, this is his time to shine. He's been off the show for ages. Yeah,
I should hit up Jacob. I should hit up Sky. There are a few that would be good to see if I could get them on.
Yeah. All right. Well, should we jump in? We got a lot to talk about.
Yeah, let's jump right into it.
Alrighty. Yeah, let's get to our review of The Suicide Squad, and we do have a clip, so take a listen.
Yo, is this a dog?
What?
Is this thing a dog?
A dog?
Yes.
What kind of dog do you think it is, mate?
I don't know. I'm not familiar with all the breeds. I'm gonna go with Afghan Hound.
Since when does an Afghan have that bloody thumbs?
Oh my God, is it a werewolf? I wanted to meet a werewolf forever.
Yo, they turned me into a werewolf? Right. Yo, let me know. I do not. I'm a werewolf.
Yeah, he's not a werewolf, okay? He's a weasel. He's harmless. I mean, he's not harmless. He's killed 27 children, but, we got him to, I think he's agreed to do this. Whatever the case, just everyone get in a position to drop.
All right, so The Suicide Squad is written and directed by James Gunn, and it stars like everybody: Margot Robbie, Idris Elba, John Cena, Joel Kinnaman, Michael Rooker, Viola Davis, Nathan Fillion, Jai Courtney, Flula Borg, Pete Davidson, Myling Nig, I think is how you say it, Sean Gunn, John Ostrander. Gosh, I feel like some of the people who are in the main cast aren't in the top billing here. So am I forgetting anybody?
I mean, it's a cast of dozens, I mean, it even has some cameos from people like Pom Clementieff. It has, did you mention Stallone?
Oh yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yes. Stallone.
So it's got a lot of people in it.
Yeah. And the synopsis is: supervillains Harley Quinn, Bloodsport, Peacemaker, and a collection of nutty cons at Bellarive Prison join the super secret, super shady Task Force X as they are dropped off at the remote, enemy-infused island of Corto Maltese. Mouthful there.
Yeah.
So yeah, this one is, it comes out 5 years after the David Ayer Suicide Squad.
Mm-hmm.
And well, yeah, I mean, Paul, do you want to start things off?
Sure. So I was not necessarily a big fan of the David Ayer, although, he says that is the studio cut of the movie. I'll say the 2016, I guess, I wasn't a big fan of Suicide Squad, 2016 Suicide Squad. I thought that it was, a little bit half baked in a lot of its concepts. And this movie, they've really danced around what it is in comparison to that one. And it's definitely a reboot. They can say whatever they want about it. It's definitely a reboot. And honestly, I really, really enjoyed it. I walked away from it, this new one, The Suicide Squad, without a lot of complaints. I thought that he did a really good job. I think that it had the right creative juice going into it. It was a time of a lot of shakeup for him. And so I think that it ended up actually creating just a really great movie. It's just, I think, a really solid all around experience. And I'm not sure that it's necessarily his best film, but ultimately I really, really enjoyed it. I think that it's very good.
Now, are you generally a fan of James Gunn?
Yeah, I really like Slither. I think that Slither's a great one. I obviously like the Guardians movies, and I really enjoy this. Like, for me, I don't think that he's made something that I've seen yet that I found disappointing or out and out bad.
Sure.
How'd you feel?
Well, yeah, so you and I, and then also Jacob Bowers, we talked about the David Ayer Suicide Squad on the DC Cinematic Universe bonus show on Bandcamp. And then also, I think Chloe and I talked about it in some form earlier on the regular show. So there's plenty of Suicide Squad talk already. So I won't repeat myself too much. But that movie, I definitely didn't hate it as much as a lot of people did. I don't think it's amazing or that good by any means either, but I thought it was okay. Flaws and all, there was something about it that I kind of liked. And so I wasn't, I didn't write that one off as much as some did. This one, I liked it overall. I think the biggest issues were, I thought all of the character work was excellent, but it was when the plot kicked in that I could not have had less interest in it. I just could not get invested in it for the life of me. And there are parts of the movie, especially in the second half, where it really focuses on the plot. And that's where I really started to phase out a little bit. And then also one thing with James Gunn, and we'll get to it with the Guardians movies, there were parts of the script of the writing that I thought were very funny, but there was a lot of it that I found very tiresome after a while. And that's the issue I had with Guardians 2 as well. And so I think that, again, there were parts of it that I really enjoyed. I could follow this one, kind of unlike the David Ayer one. And so it was more cohesive. It flowed better. It had more of a singular vision. But at the same time, I was not blown away by it as much as some people seem to be.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. Oh, but overall, I still liked it. It's weird, and it has a lot of, he seems to draw a lot from David Cronenberg, like early David Cronenberg in terms of his horror imagery, which I liked. And yeah, so that's my initial impression.
No, I think that that's all fair. I can't put my finger on it, but I definitely agree that it isn't like quite as outstanding, I think, the way that it's being painted out to be. This is really being painted with like the sort of hallelujah praises brush. And like, it's a great movie. Like, don't get me wrong. I think it's really good. I like that it's kind of essentially a metaphor for American involvement in, Central American countries, and the sort of way that we've, through various means, controlled certain outcomes of the political landscape of Central and South America. And so I really dug that sort of element of the film. And I thought that a lot of the character and cast were absolutely fantastic. For me, the standouts were definitely probably Ratcatcher 2, King Shark. I thought Nathan Fillion absolutely killed his part.
Yeah.
For the duration that he's available.
Yeah.
I thought that he did absolutely great. Joel Kinnaman,
yep,
won me over more this time than he did last time.
Sure.
But no, for whatever reason, it definitely didn't also, I think, like you were saying, really like cross that threshold into truly being like perfect. And I don't know, maybe we're a little bit spoiled on like what a comic book movie or like a cinematic experience is, but I definitely didn't think that like it hit the way that it hit other people.
Mm-hmm.
Some critics are like, oh, I walked out crying, and like,
yeah,
not a tear.
No. and also one thing with the plot. So, I mean, I'm all for, enjoying a big epic sci-fi, CG adventure. I'm not like, writing that off entirely. However, I think my main issue with getting invested in the plot was this comes, as we said, just 5 years after the first one. And that one is also a big CG, like alien conflict. And it just feels like I was watching it and I'm like, why are we telling this story? And I could not, maybe if this was the first one and we didn't have the David Ayer one, I wouldn't be thinking about that. But, having come just so soon after that one, it feels repetitive despite it being a different story. And so, maybe if this had been made 20 years later, I wouldn't feel that way, but it just feels here, we need to introduce another big CG infused sci-fi conflict for the movie. And I agree. I mean, the David Ayer one, I think it does a worse job of that. So I'm not saying that one does it better, but I think that was my main issue. And so I really clung to the characters. And I was just disappointed when it would veer away from that a little bit. And I mean, I thought the whole cast was great. I thought King Shark, the Stallone, loved him. I loved Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn, as I always do. Idris Elba is great. Really everybody. And so I had no issues with that. Couple things. So the whole starfish creature, I don't mind. I liked the look of it, and I liked some of the concepts behind it. However, one thing that really bugged me with how up in your face it was the calls back to Alien. Like the way in which the starfish grabs onto someone's face and the tentacles, it felt like tiresomely close to or copying Alien, and not really to I guess good use. And so I felt like I was just constantly like, okay, I get it. You like Alien. We all do, kind of thing. And so that part of the creature kind of bugged me. Otherwise, I thought it was really interesting. And I think the third act, when it's kind of causing mayhem, was great. It's just that, you know, I will pretty much always prefer a smaller, more grounded story, even for like a sci-fi movie. I know some people may feel the exact opposite. So that part of the movie didn't really work for me.
No, I completely get that. You know, I think this movie was really doing some, I think, odd things with its casting. And like, there's really no defense for that. For a long time, not that long a period of time, I suppose, but, you know, for a little while there, Idris was supposed to be fully replacing Will Smith.
Right.
And they decided to, you know, move him over to this other character so that way Will Smith could still potentially return to the role. And I think that refusal to clearly delineate between, is this a reboot? Is this a sequel? Is this in the same universe with that one? Is it not? All of that kind of stuff. With also still these things that do tie it to that other one, are essentially the same issues that X-Men First Class ended up having. Right. And like that whole second trilogy or 4 films rather, ended up having, was, you know, that weird, how do you fit into the timeline of this whole thing? How are you connected to this thing? It's all very confusing, you know, kind of an issue. And so I think that part of their problem is, I guess maybe they didn't want to hurt anyone's feelings, or they were worried about something. But I do think that the refusal to just firmly come down and be like, forget about the last one.
Yeah.
The last one doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You know, I saw, you know, to your point, I saw like several different people try and like, you know, mouth their way around this thing in the press, and like, boy, did they chew on it. You know, there was one guy that was like, oh, you know, we should just think of this as James Gunn's The Suicide Squad. And I was like, so it's a reboot.
Yeah.
You know, and X-Men First Class had that same problem. They were like, oh, it's not a reboot.
Yeah. And also with that, it would have been one thing if the entire cast was different. Yeah. Like with, at least with First Class and those early, the prequel films, is they are a prequel, and it's like they're in a different era. So it makes sense how they're going about things. But in this, you know, like Jai Courtney pops up for a little bit. Then Viola Davis is back. Joel Kinnaman is back. Margot Robbie is back. But then there's all this new stuff. So it's like, what are you trying to say? Like, yeah. And so I thought that was a little,
it makes it messy.
Exactly. And don't get me wrong, I really did enjoy the new characters, but that part of it, I was like, you know, so close together. I'm like, what is this? Like, I honestly, I would have preferred James Gunn just doing a whole different, not a Suicide Squad movie, just doing some other DC property that we haven't seen, and letting kind of Suicide Squad die down for a little bit.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, the way that he ended up getting Suicide Squad was essentially when he went and had his initial meeting with Warner, they just kind of threw a fleet of properties at him, up to and including Superman. They were even willing to let him have Superman. And he said, I want the Suicide Squad. You know, it was right after the firing. So, you know, who knows? Maybe an argument could be made that he was making that decision just off the heels of Guardians and wanting to kind of continue on with that creative headspace. And, you know, that's what called to him immediately. But no, I definitely understand why you would have preferred potentially seeing something different, because like it does have a lot of the similar sort of tones as things that he's done before. And yeah, I think it would have been a good opportunity to either just like pick whole new characters and completely divorce yourself from the film, or pick new actors and completely divorce yourself from the film. But this is also part of the problem with the upcoming Warner slate overall, which is like, what's your goal with any of these stories that you're telling? Are you just telling them to put out these comic book stories because they're a comic book flavor that you think that people will like? You know, are you planning on weaving them into some sort of larger narrative? Are you planning on just going and telling an interesting little 3-set with these movies? Because like currently, I see no point of a sequel to this. Yeah. Other than just to do one. You know? Yeah. And I guess you could go and completely do a whole new set of characters, and maybe the Peacemaker series is going to be like a sequel to this. But currently, like, I see no point in doing like a Suicide Squad 2 after this movie. Yeah. No, yeah, I agree. And also one thing in terms of the more grounded storytelling versus a more epic movie like this. And again, this is more so just personal preference, but it's something that immediately made me think of this immediately. I know, Paul, you didn't love Birds of Prey. You're just kind of iffy on it. I really did like it. And as I was watching this, I was thinking about one of the reasons why I enjoy that movie so much more than a lot of the other recent DC movies is because the villain in that is Ewan McGregor, and he's basically just a guy. He's like a gangster. He has some henchmen, but he's the villain. It's not some big epic, you know, action movie. It's just he is the villain, and that's something that makes the world itself, again, for me, feel more grounded, and therefore it makes characters like Harley Quinn and the whole Birds of Prey gang feel more grounded. Whereas in this, the more we got into the starfish fight and plot line, the less real this world and the characters felt to me. And so I felt as the movie went on, I became less and less connected to them. Whereas in something like Birds of Prey, I felt it was very consistent because I was like, I can understand, I can wrap my head around this world and this villain. And so I think that really only occurred to me as I was watching this, but that's why one of the reasons why I really enjoy Birds of Prey over something like this or the Justice League or Aquaman or something like that. No, and that I completely get that. Get that. That's certainly, you know, a sort of taste perspective. For me, I guess I felt about Birds of Prey kind of the same way that I feel about like Black Widow, which is that I just kind of I find you kind of bland, and I think that's a greater sin than anything is you're a little bit bland, and also you're an action movie, but your action's a little bit bland as well. I definitely think DC still hasn't figured out what they want to do with any of this. Yeah. You know, or what any of it is supposed to be. Because I can't imagine that this is meant to be connected to anything else. You know, especially since they talk about Superman being shot with a kryptonite bullet. You know, it definitely feels like he was able to write something inside of a weird bubble. So who knows what they're going to do, you know? The new Flash movie is going to be a weird, big multiverse movie. The new Batman movie looks like it's going to be something a little bit smaller, you know, and a little bit more sort of almost Fincher-esque. Yeah. So who knows? You know, they're really all over the board with everything. It's a lot of different tones and textures and flavors. And it's a bit of a mess. And so, yeah, this one overall, I thought it was entertaining. I can see why people do love it.
And, I was sad that I didn't like it as much as I did or ended up doing. But yeah, it's not, it would be one of the lesser films for me recently. Like, I guess, let's see, we have Birds of Prey, Justice League, Snyder Cut.
Wonder Woman 84.
Oh, it's way below 84. 84 rules.
You're a lunatic, Henry.
Yeah.
You're an absolute madman.
So yeah, for me, and I completely understand that I'm in the minority here. I was reading Letterboxd reviews last night. It was just making me so upset. So yeah, for me, as much as I hate to say it, I liked it, but it didn't work for me as well as I might have hoped.
I think my two biggest complaints for the movie, and I had the first one is a thought that I had the first time that I saw the movie, and it was a thought that I had the second time that I saw the movie, which was, I hate that Ratcatcher only really uses her rat power in any kind of full effect positive use at the very, very end of the movie.
Yeah.
Because it suddenly occurred to me as I was watching it, I was like, there are so many instances where these rats would have been useful.
That's what I was thinking as well.
There are so, and I can't help but be like, did James Gunn just like realize that he included a character that kind of like caused narrative solutions constantly for the thing and just decided to write around it and hope that we wouldn't notice?
Yeah.
But there were a lot of times where I was like, she could just Ant-Man this thing, but with rats.
Mm-hmm.
And plot problem solved. One of my other big issues with the movie, honestly, The Green Knight did a really good job of using its like very creative, chapter breakups. And I think that there are only like 5 or 6 in that movie. Here, he does like stylized breaks for everything. 8 minutes later, now, 30 minutes ago, that kind of thing. Along with all of these other titles. And it ends up occurring so much that like at a certain point, they all just blur together and none of them really mean anything.
Yeah.
And the only one that like really jumps out at me is like Suicide Squad versus Starro.
Yeah.
And Operation Harley, because they make the point of correcting it and changing it to Harley. So I thought that he overdid it a little bit with that. But for the most part, I think that it's a really effective movie. I think it's really, really fun. If it makes you cry, great. It didn't get me there. But, if this is, I guess, like what probably I'm imagining Henry considers like a pretty middle of the road sort of comic book experience.
Yeah, I mean, it would be above like middle of the road because there were like awesome moments. And so it's not like I didn't leave like, meh. It was more, I was a little bit more excited than I probably, in terms of just like star ratings, I probably liked it about as much as Black Widow.
Okay.
As you did, but you liked it less. So
yeah,
Black Widow. So yeah, I feel about the same as I did Black Widow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then, if this is on par with like Marvel's Black Widow, for someone, then like you can do a lot worse.
Oh, yeah.
But I really quite enjoyed it. I think that it's really very good. I think it has a lot of heart. I think it has a lot of chemistry. And I think that a lot of that shines through.
Yeah. What did you think about the violence, the gore?
I actually thought that it was a little tame only in the sense that like some of the worst of it really happened up front. And then the rest of the movie was pretty clean.
Yeah.
Nothing really hit quite as hard as that opening sequence.
Yeah, I did talking about things I liked because I feel like I've been kind of crapping on the movie, but I did really like when Harley, the flower sequence where she's fighting and there's the like the flower effects. I love that part. And I think the beach sequence was awesome. And Pete Davidson being in there was kind of cool as well. I loved the little weasel creature.
Yeah, Weasel is a standout. If he had been in any more of the movie, he'd have stolen the whole thing for me.
I agree. Yeah. Yeah, I like the Suicide Squad group, the concept of it. And I think the movie worked best when they weren't out doing things. Like I just enjoyed it when they were in like in a helicopter together, kind of bouncing off each other. And it was more so when they broke apart and they were all doing their own thing where it became a little unfocused and not as interesting. So I really think the core group is great. And when they're together, it's awesome. So I think they nailed that part of it.
No, for sure. I think that's completely fair.
Yeah. All right. Anything else about this one?
Warner Brothers has a very public history now of micromanaging films, and the Snyder Cut is apparently what he had originally intended. I doubt parts of that sentiment, but that's a different argument for another time.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, when he left, they chose that opportunity as a chance to make the movie that they decided that they wanted to make. They made sure that David Ayer didn't have the power to have any kind of final say in his movie, and they went in and they made the movie that they wanted to make, or at least the edit that they wanted to make. And even though I think both of those movies, even if it had been the Ayer cut itself, even though I think both of those still would have been not great movies, problematic movies, you signed off on everything in pre-production. It's ludicrous that then once you finally get the product, you already bought the cow. Why are you pissed about this milk?
Yeah.
This is what you should have expected. But, say what you will. They apparently let James Gunn have carte blanche. They apparently didn't interfere. They had some notes here and there, but apparently it was just his for the most part. And it ended up being one of the better films they've made. And I think that it speaks for itself that one of their overall cinematic, more cohesive experiences is one that they didn't meddle in.
Mm-hmm.
And the movie apparently isn't doing well financially. And I think that that's for a lot of reasons. I think it's partly for HBO Max. I think it's partly for the Delta variant.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that you always have your best work come out usually when you let an artist actually be an artist instead of being a money man pretending to be an artist.
Yeah.
And so I think that this is a really great movie. And I think that that's definitely because they stayed out of it.
Yeah, I agree. And also, as much as I'll try and defend the David Ayer one, at the end of the day, we have to judge the film by what we have. I would love to see the Ayer cut, and just, even if it's awful, I would love to just see it, just, for the satisfaction. And so, this one is, for me, is better, but I still, in some ways, in its own weird way, I still kind of enjoy the this original to a certain degree. And yeah, so I do agree that even if this film wasn't brilliant for me, I did really appreciate that it was a singular vision. It was pretty cohesive. It wasn't constantly referencing other DC properties. It was just a movie. And so that part, yeah. I did enjoy. It had a bunch of really enormous sets as well. A lot of really practical production work. So yeah. All right. Out of 5?
4.
3.5 for me. All right. Should we get to the first Guardians?
Sure.
All right. Yeah, let's get to Guardians of the Galaxy, which was released in 2014. And we also have a clip. So take a listen.
If we're going to get out of here, we're going to need to get into that watchtower. And to do that, I'm going to need a few things. The guards wear security bands to control their ins and outs. I need one.
Leave it to me.
That dude there. I need his prosthetic leg.
His leg?
Yeah. God knows I don't need the rest of him. Look at him, he's useless.
All right.
And finally, on the wall back there is a black panel. Blinky yellow light. You see it?
Yeah.
There's a Quarnix battery behind it. Purplish box, green wires. To get into that watchtower, I definitely need it.
How are we supposed to do that?
Well, supposedly these bald bodies find you attractive, so maybe you can work out some sort of trade.
You must be joking.
No, I really heard they find you attractive.
Look, it's 20 feet up in the air, and it's in the middle of the most heavily guarded part of the prison. It's impossible to get up there without being seen.
I got one plan, and that plan requires a frickin' Quarnix battery, so figure it out! Can I get back to it? Thanks. Now, this is important. Once the battery is removed, everything is gonna slam into emergency mode. Once we have it, we gotta move quickly. So you definitely need to get that last. Or we could just get it first and improvise.
I'll get the armband.
Lag.
All right. So as I said, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1 came out in 2014. And it's written and directed by James Gunn, but also Nicole Perlman was a co-writer. It stars Chris Pratt, Vin Diesel, Bradley Cooper, Zoe Saldana, Dave Bautista, Lee Pace, Michael Rooker, Karen Gillian, Digimon Hanzo, John C. Reilly, Benicio del Toro, Glenn Close, Laura Haddock, Sean Gunn. Am I forgetting anybody?
No, that sounds like everyone.
Yeah, that's enough. And the synopsis is: a group of intergalactic criminals must pull together to stop a fanatical warrior with plans to purge the universe. So this one, I guess, was James Gunn's first big blockbuster, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that kind of, yeah. And it came right at the time when I guess Marvel was really starting to branch out a little bit. With a lot of different films and stories. And yeah, well, how do you want to start this one, Paul?
Do you want to kick this one off?
Sure. So this one, I saw it in theaters, and at the time I thought it was awesome. And I still do. Spoiler there. I think it's by far still one of my favorite Marvel films by a long shot. I think that, and one thing that I noticed going through the writing credits for these movies is Nicole Perlman co-wrote this one, but not the second one. And then she wasn't involved with the Suicide Squad. And potentially that could be one of the reasons why the humor in the first one works so much better for me than all of his other works, because I think this one is hysterical. And I think it's a perfect balance of humor matched with the sci-fi genre. And so I think the movie is incredibly funny. I love the characters, the look. Pretty much the only issues I have with it there are a couple little, on rewatches, a few exposition dumps that kind of hurt the pace a little bit. But I think it flows great. There are, very particular character moments that really work. They pick their spots. They don't overdo it. And so, yeah, I really enjoy the movie, even many times over.
No, I think that that's all really fair. This is part of phase 2 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which is an interesting phase because it's actually one that's marked by like a lot of very, very heavy studio interference. Mm-hmm. But this is one where, by all record, James Gunn, was able to work very cohesively, according to him, inside of, the environment. And maybe that's because they didn't have a lot of expectations for this film, kind of like with Iron Man. But I think that it ended up really working. He had been a writer for a long time. He had come from this sort of like B-movie house. That was his background, was this sort of B-movie house trauma. And he had written some other things, like the Scooby-Doo live action movie was something that he had written, which was originally supposed to be R-rated. Nice. And for like adult Scooby-Doo fans, but the studio backed out at the last minute, and we ended up with the Scooby-Doo movie that we got, which I love for various reasons, but not because it's necessarily good. And, he went and he did some other things. He did Slither, which was a horror movie. He did Super, which was a comic book movie of sorts. It was a superhero movie of sorts. But this was like his first big thing. And it was definitely a labor of love. And I think that it really pays off. I saw this movie for the first time in theaters in Austin, Texas with my sister on this trip that she and I were taking. And it was just so electrifying. Like the moment that it started, the soundtrack kicked in. It was a unique Marvel experience. It hit those sort of Star Wars vibes and feelings that you get. And I think that it really nailed like exactly what it wanted to do. And I think that that's the reason that like the first Guardians still stands out, is because even I think more so with Suicide Squad, like it's truly just like this really well thought out, really well planned, well executed thing that's just full of a lot of heart and a lot of character. And like, this is the one, people are like, oh, I cried in Suicide Squad. Like, nah, like this is the one that gets tears.
Sure.
Guardians of the Galaxy is the one that really, I think hits home emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I really enjoy the movie, and I've rewatched it recently, and it still holds up. It's one that holds up better than a lot of the other ones, honestly.
Yeah. And also, so talking about the cast, so this was when Chris Pratt broke out. He did the Lego movie this year, and I think he is awesome in this. And I was talking about him a couple weeks ago, and I think it's why it's an issue in the second one is he feels very invested in this. He still has a bit of an edge and some personality to him, whereas I feel like by the time the second one comes along, he just feels too comfortable. For some reason. And so, but I think he's awesome. And this, the whole cast is great. Really. I've talked to some people who don't like Bradley Cooper as Rocket Raccoon. I love him as that character. And I think that also this comes before he and Groot became this like pop culture phenomenon, and they are just kind of silly, odd characters. Whereas in the later ones, they kind of become a little too precious, but in this, they feel genuine, full of heart, as you said. And also one thing that James Gunn does well that he did with the Suicide Squad is, aside from a little bit of Thanos and all of that, you could watch this without even really knowing it's a Marvel film.
Yeah.
It pretty much stands on its own as just a sci-fi adventure. And I think that's why I really prefer it over a lot of other Marvel films.
Mm-hmm.
And there are great like standout moments. I love the scene where Rocket Raccoon is talking about like being torn apart and then put back together again. I think really every character, as I said, gets their moment and it works. Basic stuff is like the soundtrack is awesome. Of course, it's really enjoyable. The plot isn't too convoluted.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it really works for me.
No, yeah. I think one of the reasons that this movie stands above Guardians 2 and even like Suicide Squad is that everything is sort of grounded in, on a certain level, I think, like, the theme of grief. And so you end up having this group where I think even though they all go through different stages of grief, I think they also all at their core represent different levels or different stages of grief, so you've got, I think that you've got anger, with Drax. I think that you've got acceptance with Groot. I think that you have probably primarily like bargaining with Peter. You have denial to an extent with Rocket. And so I think that everything really coalesces nicely where they all end up fitting together very, very well. And all of them are on a similar journey of moving past their grief.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like in Guardians 2, it's about fatherhood for some of the characters. It's about family and sisterhood for some of the characters, and everyone is all on, kind of like you said with this movie, their own journey, their own separate things. Everyone's a little bit more broken up, which isn't necessarily a bad choice, but those journeys still have to remain engaging on their own. Whereas like with Guardians, everyone feels equated into this whole thing. Once you get the group together, the group pretty much for the most part sticks together until the end of the movie. And yeah, the soundtrack, this is the best of the Guardian soundtracks for sure. And it's definitely the best of like the three major James Gunn soundtracks, but it's because everything really has a lot of very, very deep intentionality in its choices and its connections to the movie. And I think it does a really fantastic job. And I think it's the one that's probably the most grounded in heart,
Yeah.
More than any of the others.
Yeah. Certain sequences, I love the prison sequence, not just the breakout, but I think everything leading up to that is awesome. And then the whole sequence around the Rocket Raccoon moment is great as well when they travel to that other planet. Zoe Saldana is awesome in everything. She just is perfect for the sci-fi world. She can just blend into, those characters and those worlds so easily, as well as other things, of course. But I love her. Dave Bautista, he's definitely grown a little bit over time. He's given just enough to where he doesn't really have to work all that hard, and it works because of that. Yeah, so it's great. I think it's deserving of the better Marvel films.
Yeah, I think for me, going off the casting, the only miscast, honestly, and maybe it's not even a miscast, maybe they just should have let her use her accent, was Karen Gillan. Nebula only works part of the time for me. I don't know if it's that her accent holds her back sometimes. I don't know if it's something about the way that they do the makeup. I don't know if it's something about the character on the page and her relation to that character, but there's always something where, like, 50% of the time, Nebula doesn't work for me as well as I think she should.
See, I feel kind of the opposite. I think she's great in everything, or all the time. But that's fair enough. Let's see. Yeah, and I think also talking about the writing and the humor, and of course, this is all just hearsay, but it could be a reason why I do find this movie funnier than the others, because I feel like in Guardians 2 and then in the Suicide Squad, where it's just James Gunn writing, the humor feels more in your face, kind of a little bit more juvenile at times. Whereas in the first Guardians, it feels a little more subtle, a little more graceful. And I think that's the big reason why I find this movie very consistent in its humor, and the others not so much.
More lived in instead of leaned on.
Exactly. Yeah.
No, I think that's fair.
Yeah. All right. Anything else about the first Guardians?
No, I think, the worst part of it is honestly probably Ronan. And I think that's just because it's not necessarily Lee Pace's fault. I think it's just that the script and the movie itself don't give us enough time to understand his culture and why he's feeling grief over the loss of his culture. And I don't think that they ever connect that in well enough. He just ends up being the bad guy.
Yeah.
And that's probably the worst thing about it.
Yeah. All right. Out of 5?
I'll go 4.5.
Same here. All right, then let's get to our last review, which is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, which came out in 2017. And we also have a clip, so take a listen.
You're the one what killed those men by leading them down the wrong path. Because you're weak. And stupid! It's time for the Ravagers to rise once again to glory with a new captain! Taserface!
I'm sorry. Your name is... It's Taserface?
That's right.
Do you shoot tasers out of your face?
It's metaphorical!
For what?
It is a name what strikes fear into the hearts of anyone what hears it.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Okay, whatever you say.
Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 is also written and directed by James Gunn and stars everybody pretty much as the first one, but also has Sylvester Stallone, Kurt Russell, Elizabeth Debicki, Tommy Flanagan,
Clementia.
Yep. And I don't know if I said Vin Diesel the first time, but yeah, Vin Diesel, of course, Hannah Harlow, and that's about it, I think. And the synopsis is the Guardians struggle to keep together as a team while dealing with their personal family issues. Notably, Star-Lord's encounter with his father, the ambitious celestial being, Ego. Yeah, this one came out 3 years after the first and was still fairly well received and did pretty well financially as well. Paul, how does this one compare?
So there are a few times in franchises or in even in the Marvel universe where I think that it's sort of like a pick your flavor kind of thing. Either one is sort of a valid option. You know, if you looked at me and I think that there are good parts and bad parts of all the Iron Man films to really, if you look at me and tell me that any of them are your favorite, I look and I go, that's acceptable. Like, that's fine. I think it's weird if you look at me and say like Thor: The Dark World is my favorite. Then I think that you might just be an idiot. But, you know, with Guardians, I think with Guardians and Guardians Volume 2, I think that they both have really great parts. And I think that they also have, you know, a few little hiccups here and there, to the point that it really just becomes an issue of picking which ones bother you the most versus not. And so for me, some of the things that, you know, don't bother other people in this movie bother me a little bit more. And so I like it fine. I don't think it's actually technically worse than the first Guardians, but I still prefer the first Guardians.
Interesting. I kind of feel differently. I saw this one in theaters as well. Hadn't really seen much marketing or anything beforehand. And I pretty much have the same issue with this one as I do the Suicide Squad, I think. But more so with this one, I felt going in, the direction and how these characters were handled were like, James Gunn was thinking, okay, these characters are icons. They're so precious now. People love them. I need to give them, you know, every single moment possible so they'll be happy. And I feel like, whereas in the first one, each character has their moment, as I said, and it works. In this, I feel like everyone is given like 5 or 6. It feels like it's constantly trying to pay homage or build these characters up even more when I don't think they're really deserving of that. I think they're enjoyable characters and all of that. But I think that even before I saw the movie, when the Guardians were being kind of built up, I was like, what's the deal here? Like, what am I missing? Because as much as I enjoy them, I think that the way that they've been treated, and especially in this movie, it feels a little overdone. And also one thing with Chris Pratt is, as I said, he feels a bit on autopilot on this one. I think everybody else kind of works, but I think he, at this point, even had kind of lost his edge. And he became just kind of a bland action hero from here on out. And I think even his appearances in other Marvel films after this, I kind of feel the same way. And so the movie is a pretty big step down for me. I just really, I don't know. It feels overly long, overly precious. I still really like the visuals of the movie. I like the soundtrack, and I like some of the weird worlds that they go to. But overall, I think that it's for me, it's a little too full of itself to really work.
Yeah. No, I completely get where you're coming from with that. I definitely think that there are some moments that feel a little bit kind of like a game of almost one-upsmanship or something with the previous movie. I think that's something that I have gripe-wise probably with the soundtrack, is that it almost feels like it's trying to do this weird sort of like competition with the last one, instead of, I think, really finding as organic a song choices and song beats throughout the movie. And I don't think that it works as cohesively overall. I definitely think that the movie is also a little bit on the busy side in terms of plots. Like, I think that it does get a little bit distracted in terms of like how much is going on.
Yeah.
And some of the gags definitely don't always work. And sometimes that's because of the gag itself. Sometimes that's because of the delivery or the direction of the gag. The one that stands out to me right now is the unripe fruit gag. It's an okay joke, and then they play it for a pretty long period of time, and then you finally get the payoff, and the payoff is just okay. And so it ends up not really being worth it in the long run. This one's also pretty like cameo packed in terms of like people that are from former Sly Stallone projects or friends, or former James Gunn projects or friends of James Gunn. You know, like that's why we get Sly Stallone and stuff like that. The plot of this movie was, or in specific, the Star-Lord and Ego plot of this movie was supposed to be Guardians 3. That was apparently what James Gunn had originally envisioned, was that he would go do Guardians, and then, you know, he had this idea of how you could end out the trilogy. You could open it being about Peter's parentage. You could end it being about Peter's parentage, you know, have this other story in the middle that he hadn't figured out yet. And that would be the trilogy. But he wasn't sure that he wanted to commit to doing Guardians 2 and Guardians 3. So he decided that he would just take that element of Guardians 3 and pull it in as the main plot of Guardians 2, which then gave us 2 movies back to back where Peter was our anchoring force and his, you know, story with his parents and that sort of thing. And I think that probably also ends up hurting the movie a little bit, just because it is such a heavy focus on Peter for 2 movies back to back, Peter and his parents. And even though I think that story probably works best because it's probably like the most thought through, I think that it then makes everyone else's story try to like fit around that.
Yeah.
More so. And like the stuff, honestly, with Yondu and Rocket about fatherhood for me doesn't necessarily work as well as I think that it should. Speaking of Chris Pratt, I definitely agree that this is his least performance. I even prefer him in Infinity War to here. He really doesn't sell it for me when Yondu dies. That's an especially weak part of the performance for me.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, let me, because I've completely forgotten about that. In terms of the preciousness of this world or how they treat it, the extended death or a funeral, what's his name?
Yondu.
Yeah, Yondu is almost laughable. Like how long it goes on with a character who I agree he's a part of this world, but it almost feels like if that's what it should be, if like Star-Lord had died, that's okay. Then I'll give you that length of time. But the amount of time that he's given, especially at the end of the movie, I was like, I get it. Like he's not, but for me at least, and maybe I'm missing something, but he wasn't deserving of such like heft of this movie to me.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, I definitely get where you're coming from with that. And honestly, like the Ravagers just in general get very inflated from being like this one band of marauders to being this like network of many bands of marauders. Yeah. And the one that Peter is a part of is also like excommunicated from the others. Like they really suddenly like open that up in a big way. Michael Rooker does a great job, but I definitely understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
And also, even though I love the song Father and Son by Cat Stevens, incredible song, beautiful song.
Oh, yeah.
It couldn't be more cliched in its selection here, you know, like could not be more on the nose.
Yeah. But, you know, I feel like I'm being needlessly cynical, but I mean, like parts of it that I did really like. I love the part in the forest with Rocket Raccoon. When he's kind of jumping through the trees and all of that, I thought that was awesome. I think I always find Rocket Raccoon's humor to be the funniest. And a lot of that might have to do with Bradley Cooper, but I always love it when he's on screen and making jokes, even if it's a little goofier or juvenile at times. I really enjoy that character, even in the second one. But no, I mean, it's very colorful. I like the visuals, and I pretty much never have an issue with that when it comes to James Gunn. It's just that the execution of the movie, the substance of the movie feels overblown for what it is. So, and even like comparing it to other films, and maybe this has to do with, you know, there being different directors for some of these trilogies, is like, you know, with Iron Man, it's a different director every time. And that's Iron Man is a precious character in the context of Marvel, but like it almost never feels like they're pounding you across the head with it. Like it always feels like it's its own movie. It's its own thing. We're going to treat it with, quote unquote respect. Whereas in this, it's like James Gunn is like, no, we have to make these characters something that I don't know if they are.
Well, and maybe that also comes with the fact that like this was supposed to be a third movie,
right?
And if this was the trilogy end out, and we had a little bit more time with like Yondu and some of that sort of thing, then like maybe some of the grandiose nature of it would have settled a little bit better for you.
Exactly. Yeah.
But no, I completely get where you're at. Where like this is a second movie.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, and I feel like I've been kind of cynical, but I guess I won't have a chance to be cynical for a little bit. So I'm getting it all out now. I'm curious to see what the third volume is. I mean, I'm interested to see that. So I'm not writing the series off or anything like that. Yeah. So it's okay for me. It's okay.
Yeah. No, I think that's fair.
Yeah. Anything else about Guardians in general?
No, I'm excited for the third. I'm excited for the Christmas special. I am glad that James Gunn is back. It was hard to imagine someone else taking that over and it having, he does have his own sort of distinct edge, even if it is sometimes like you put it a little bit juvenile. I think that it is at least distinctly his. There were definitely things in Suicide Squad that it was like, no, this is definitely a James Gunn movie, and I really enjoy his work. I definitely hope to see him do more. I would honestly definitely love to see him, once Guardians is over, step away from big name property stuff and go back to something original, even if it is big budget. I would just like it to be directly from his mind, not an adaptation or an interpretation, but, another original James Gunn idea in full. So, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Because like, even if I don't love this movie, and also with the third one as you said, I'm happy that it's going to be him all the way, even if not all of it is perfect. Almost like how I see the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy. Like Spider-Man 3 is not amazing, but I'm glad that those three are his.
Yeah.
And so I think that's how I feel about this one. All right, out of 5.
I guess just because I don't want to necessarily give it the same score as Suicide Squad, I guess I'll go 3.5.
All right, it's a heavy 3 for me. Heavy 3. So, all right, well, do you want to end off with some picks of the week, Paul?
Yeah, sure.
All right, what you been watching?
So let's see. I watched Doctor Strange recently, which is still just okay.
Yeah.
Meandering at times. Pretty stock. I honestly probably do like that and Black Widow about as much. At least Doctor Strange has a better ending.
Yeah.
Black Widow may have a better start, though. Just because I do like the brief period of time where it's a spy movie, like a regular spy movie.
Yeah.
So Doctor Strange, Bourne Ultimatum, finished that one out. Great movie. Honestly, I still think it's the best of the trilogy, if only because I think it has probably the best elements of the first and the second without a lot of the fluff. Like, it's a really efficient movie. And I really, really enjoy it a lot. In preparation for this, I did rewatch the not the Ayer cut, but the extended cut.
Okay.
Of the Suicide Squad movie.
What'd you think?
Again, so as I sat down and watched it, David Ayer recently released that statement where he was like, my movie was tampered with. As far as I'm concerned, only a few people saw it. So if anyone says that they did, they're full of it. And that's the last thing that I'm going to say about it. So I sat down and I watched it and I said, okay, if that's true, let me try and look past some of the editorial decisions regarding the soundtrack and some of the way that the movie was textured and stuff like that, and boil it down a little bit and decide like whether or not I think that there's something salvageable in this movie. And at the end of the day, I think that there are just too many weird performance choices, weird character choices on a script level, and weak plot elements on a script level that I don't see any edit of this movie unless there are heaps of unused footage, mountains of unused footage. I don't think that there's any way that that movie is really truly saved to the point of me going, it's great. Maybe I could say that it's more cohesive, but I doubt that there's any way that I could really say that it's necessarily a better movie.
Maybe we'll get a 4-hour version of his movie, Paul.
No, and we need to stop doing that. Leave things the fuck alone. You can't cry about George Lucas doing what he wants, you know, with Star Wars movies, and then also beg for studios to go back and re-edit and add in all of this other stuff and recut things. You know, you can't have your cake and eat it too.
Yeah. I mean, like the extended cut, I like it, as I've said, but it's very flawed. And yeah, I agree with everything you said. I think it's just something about his style. I like the Arkham Asylum aspect as well. And I think there's something more about the tone of the characters. It's a little bit more of a, I don't know, like kind of like a punk vibe. Whereas I feel like in James Gunn's, it's a little, it just feels different and not really in a way where I was like caring about them. Whereas they're still despicable in David Ayers, but there's something about them where I was a little bit more engaged. And maybe that's just because it was the first one, perhaps. But yeah, it's a very flawed movie. I mean, you can't, we've talked plenty about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you? What have you been watching?
Not too much this week. I rewatched The Trip and The Trip to Italy, the Steve Coogan, Rob Brydon comedies, which I think are awesome. I think The Trip to Italy is my favorite. And they play themselves and they tour different or drive around different countries and do restaurant reviews for magazine, but it's basically just them at a table doing impressions and bouncing off each other. And if you can get invested in that, it's hysterical. And I think they're really just fun, easy, feel-good movies. And I think both Steve Coogan and Rob Brydon are awesome on their own and especially together. So they're worth a watch if you have not seen them. Then I rewatched Ferris Bueller's Day Off, which I hadn't seen in a while, and it's still awesome. It's hysterical. And then lastly, I rewatched Ridley Scott's Robin Hood from 2010 with Russell Crowe.
Russell Crowe.
Yeah. Have you seen this, Paul?
Yeah.
How do you feel about it?
It's okay.
Yeah. I'm all up for a good medieval epic, and I think Ridley Scott does. I'm always excited when he does a medieval movie because I think he just has a great feel for it. This one, pretty much my only real issue is it feels very long. Like there are parts in the middle that feel very slow and needlessly extended. And I think if it had been a little bit tighter, it would have been better. Whereas I feel the opposite with Kingdom of Heaven. I think the director's cut of that, where it's, I think 3.5 hours, is awesome. And it's much better than the theatrical. But in this, there feels like there's a little less content there that doesn't really warrant I think it's 2.5 hours, but overall I still enjoy it. It's a cool medieval movie. I'm always up for a Robin Hood story. So, it's worth a watch.
Is there an extended cut of Robin Hood as well?
There is.
Okay. Is that the one that you watched?
No, I watched it at some point. I would not be able to tell you what's different about it, but I think it's 2 hours and 40 minutes.
Okay.
That one. So there is an extended cut.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think that's about it for me.
No, that's pretty good.
Yeah. All right. Well, Paul, anything else you want to mention about anything?
No, not really. I need to figure out what I'm going to do for next week and who I'm going to have with me. It'll definitely be weird and a little bit, honestly, on the sad side to not have you here. But we'll keep trucking and we'll keep going with it.
Yeah, and I, as I've said before, I really appreciate you taking up the reins for a bit. So yeah, and I look forward to listening to it with me not on it. Yeah. So I never really have that luxury. So that'll be nice. And so, stay updated on social media and all that stuff for next week. Paul, any ideas what you're going to do next week out of curiosity?
No.
Yeah, clearly we plan ahead. We do great on that. But yes, just stay updated on social media and all that stuff, and I'm sure it'll be really exciting. So again, I'm not leaving the show for good or anything like that. I'll be back as soon as I possibly can. But you're in good hands, everyone, and I hope you'll keep going and stick around. Yeah. All right. Well. Yeah. Thanks, Paul, for being here and for keeping things going. And I'll do my best to keep you updated about everything.
Of course.
Staying in touch. So all right. Well, we hope you enjoyed it as much as we did, and we'll see you next time.